Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadari. Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna. So this evening we'll be reading from Bhagavad Gita, Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we'll be reading from chapter 2, entitled Contents of the Gita Summarized, text 61. So I'll just read the Sanskrit and then the English translation and then the commentary purport by Srila Prabhupada, and then we could discuss. Before we begin, if everybody could please repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Tani sarvani samyamya yukta asita matparaha vashehi yasidindriyani tasya pragya pratishtata. Okay, translation. One who restrains his senses, keeping them under full control, and fixes his consciousness upon me, is known as a man of steady intelligence. Purport. Do you think you could close that door, Joseph? That the highest conception of yoga perfection is Krishna consciousness is clearly explained in this verse. And unless one is Krishna conscious, it is not at all possible to control the senses. As cited above, the great sage Durvasa Muni picked a quarrel with Maharaj Ambarish. And Durvasa Muni unnecessarily became angry out of pride, and therefore could not check his senses. On the other hand, the king, although not as powerful a yogi as the sage, but a devotee of the Lord, silently tolerated all the sage's injustices, and thereby emerged victorious. The king was able to control his senses because of the following qualifications, as mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam 9:4, 18 through 20. Savayamana Krishna Padar Ravindayo Prachamsi Vaikunta Gunarna Varnane Kodau Hare Mandira Marjanadishu Shutim Chakara Chuta Sat Kato Deye Mukunda Lingalaya Darshane Drishau Tadbrita Gatra Sparsha Ganga Sangamam Granam Chatatpada Saroja Saurabe Srimat Tulasya Rasanam Tadarpate. Okay, one more. Padau Hare Chaitra Padanusarpane Shiro Rishikesha Padabi Vandane Kamam Chadasye Natukama Kamyaya Yatotama Shloka Janashayaratihi. Which means, for those of you who are rusty on your Sanskrit, there's a translation here. King Ambarish fixed his mind on the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, engaged his words in describing the abode of the Lord, his hands in cleansing the temple of the Lord, his ears in hearing the pastimes of the Lord, his eyes in seeing the form of the Lord, Krishna, his body in touching the body of the devotee, his nostrils in smelling the flavor of the flowers offered to the lotus feet of the Lord, his tongue in tasting the tulsi leaves offered to him, his legs in traveling to the holy places where his temple is situated, his head in offering obeisances unto the Lord, and his desires in fulfilling the desires of the Lord. All these qualifications made him fit to become a Matpada devotee of the Lord. So one more paragraph. The word Matpada is most significant in this connection. How one can become a Matpada is described in the life of Maharaj Ambarish. Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan, a great scholar and acharya in the line of Matpada, remarks, Mad Bhakti Prabhavena Sarvendriya Vijaya Purvika Svatmadrishtihi Sulabheti Bhavaha. The senses can be completely controlled only by the strength of devotional service to Krishna. Also, the example of fire is sometimes given. As a blazing fire burns everything within a room, Lord Viṣṇu, situated in the heart of the yogi, burns up all kinds of impurities. The Yoga Sutra also prescribes meditation on Viṣṇu and not meditation on the void. Anyone try to meditate on the void recently? That's right. Yes. The so-called yogis who meditate on something other than Viṣṇu simply waste their time in a vain search after some phantasmagoria. We have to be Krishna conscious, devoted to the personality of Godhead. This is the aim of the real yoga. Om Gyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshulan Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Ukam Karitavachalam Pangam Langai Tegarim Yakripatamaham Bande Shri Gunundinitarinam Vansha Kapadiribhishta Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gauda Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So read the translation one more time. One who restrains his senses, keeping them under full control, and fixes his consciousness upon me is known as a man of steady intelligence. Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport a personality by the name of Maharaj Ambarish. And Maharaj, of course, I think most of you know, maybe all of you, but Maharaj means king. Now, of course, when we hear of a king, I mean, People are like, oh, king, those guys are, immoral and unreasonable, and therefore they're, anyways, I don't know if there's any kings. There's some kings still existing, right? Yeah, around. Huh? Well, anyways. I mean, the Vedic conception of power and king, and it's a bit different, I guess, from King Charles. But all due respect to King Charles, I don't mean to minimize his position, Maharaj Charles. But generally, this idea of king has just been abolished because all of the corruption. Just like when people think of politicians. I mean, of course, to make a general statement, but a lot of the times people think of politicians are like, okay, well, yeah, I mean, maybe they're cheating. I mean, most likely, and as a joke amongst the politicians goes, or a saying amongst the politician goes, when is a politician lying, right? Who could say? His lips are moving, yeah. These are some negative, right, conceptions of politicians and so on. But Maharaj Ambarish, he was what they call a Raja Rishi or Rajarshi. Rajarshi means the two together, Raja Rishi. So a sage-like king. He wasn't an ordinary king. He was a sage-like king. Means a saintly king, a king with all good qualities. And naturally, one who becomes a devotee of Krishna, or a surrendered soul to Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they develop all good qualities. Now, sometimes people may argue that, hey, well, I've seen people devoted to God or to Krishna, and it doesn't seem like they have all good qualities. So, what would we say to that? Anybody have an idea? What would be the answer to that? If somebody says, hey, I'm seeing people, they're devoted to God, they're devoted to Krishna, the Supreme Person, but they haven't developed all good qualities. So, but you're saying, so what would we say? Does anybody want to? All right, Dravida Prabhu.
It's a process. They're developing
Okay, so Dravida Prabhu is saying it's a process. It takes time. It's not automatic. Not that, okay, we say, okay, I'm a devotee, and then all the good qualities, but it takes some time. Okay, that's one. Okay, Joseph, you want to say? You want to say into the mic there? There's a mic. Just so utilize.
From personal experience, nobody's perfect.
All right. Any other ideas? Oh yeah, so he's saying that, okay, he's saying that we say you become a devotee, surrender to Krishna, you develop all good qualities, but no one's perfect. I mean, religious people could say that too. Hey, I'm not perfect. Okay, I might be a devotee of Krishna, I might be surrendered to God or whatever, but I'm not perfect. They may say that. Another one? You want to pass the mic to him?
The relationship that one has between himself and Krishna is between himself and Krishna, and the plan that he's on, or the plan that Krishna has for him, is private. It's between those two, and whatever development that he has planned for you, that's part of the development. That was not very eloquently spoken, but
thank you. So one thing, another thing in relation to this, I would say, is that if one says they're a devotee of Krishna, or if one is a devotee of Krishna, and they do not have all of the good qualities, and especially if anyways, you could say that it means that they're doing something incorrect or they're doing something wrong. It means there's something in the process. There's a you could say flaw in the process. Not a flaw in the process. There's a flaw in the execution of the process. Just like there's a process to bake, right? Any bakers? Okay, we've got one baker or two. Okay. All right. Maybe others are shy, don't want to say they're bakers. It's actually a very important art, I think. Anyways, bake for Krishna, bake for the devotees. So in baking, everything has to be very precisely measured, right? Or else it just doesn't come out. I mean, the cake doesn't rise. It tastes like, what is it? Baking soda, you know? The cake tastes like baking soda. What else? I don't know. Anyways, there's some, or it's supposed to be sweet, right? But it's bitter or whatever, you know, due to adding some wrong ingredients. So many things could go wrong with baking. You could burn it. And there's a vast difference between something that is baked properly and something that's half-baked or baked incorrectly. There's a vast difference. And the difference is nobody wants anything to do with the half-baked or burnt or whatever, you know. One's much superior. Unless they're... Anyways, so similarly, and in general, actually, cooking is a precise art. Like how much you fry something, for example. Let's say you're frying in clarified butter, ghee. You're frying something. You're frying some pakora-battered broccoli. Now, if you fry it if the temperature's too high, then the outside looks cooked, but then when you bite into it, the broccoli is raw, and you taste the dust. Just like, oh God, really very unpleasant, you know. Like you don't want anything to do with it. Now, and then if you could say if the flame is on the right temperature, but then you cook it too long, it becomes burnt, and then also you don't want anything to do with it. What other things go wrong with pakoras? Burnt, looking cooked but not really cooked. Anyways, whatever. We get the idea. So in other words, it's a precise art, cooking. Similarly, Krishna consciousness is a precise science or a precise art. In other words, it has to be practiced very precisely in order to get the result. So we could say that if it's not practiced precisely, then we may not get the full results. And therefore, someone may say, oh, that doesn't look like they have all the good qualities. Well, there must be some imprecise practice. So we'll use this as an opportunity. I was going to announce it on number 2, but now I'll announce it on number 3. You could just take your phones, and if you like, you could throw them out the window. Or you could just turn them off, whatever you want to do. Silence them or whatever. I'm just joking. Nobody's going to throw their phone out the window, right? That's like... Okay, so moving on. So sage, a yogi, this particular sage and yogi, Durvasa Muni, he had an encounter with Ambarish Maharaj. A very historical encounter, which we'll get into in a minute. But Srila Prabhupada mentions that this sage Ambarish, he lost control of his, this sage Durvasa Muni, he lost control of his senses. Means he lost control of his anger, of his envy, he just completely lost control. And out of pride also, that's another thing. So this particular pride, it's a great fault, or actually a great fault, it's a terrible fault. It's a terrible fault. And out of all the qualities that one may try to rid themselves of, this is, in many cases, a very challenging one. Because there's been many cases of people giving up the world, means giving up the pleasures of the world, right? The comfort. the comfort of financial stability, the comfort of knowing I got a lot in my bank account, to just in case. The comfort of having one's own property and beautiful family, and on and on and on. One could give all that up, right? And then they could think to themselves, yes, I gave it all up, and I'm very, and be proud about it. It's an interesting thing, actually. So can be hard to give up. And aside from that, especially within the religious world, there's a lot of pride in the religious world. Means different groups. There's groups of people belonging to different religious Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, this, that, so many different, Hinduism, so many different isms. And there could be a particular pride that's developed there. That, hey, I'm part of the, I'm part of the group that's better than everybody else, right? So that's also there, religious pride. But by nature, and also amongst the yogis means those who are practicing the different principles of mystic yoga, they also have a tendency to be proud. But devotees who are fully surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they throw pride far away. It has nothing to do with their lives. And by nature, they are humble and friendly and compassionate and etc. like that. So there was a particular case in which Durvasa Muni, in the 9th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's mentioned that Durvasa Muni, he went to visit Ambarish Maharaj. And he came there with a lot of disciples. Does anyone remember how many disciples he came there with? 60,000. That's a lot of disciples, right? He came there with 60,000 disciples. And to visit Maharaj Ambarish. So Maharaj Ambarish, as even nowadays, but as culture has it, he wanted to feed Durvasa Muni and his 60,000 disciples. I think we have a hard time cooking for a big family, right? 60,000 disciples. So then Durvasa Muni said, okay, well, I need to go down to the river. I'll take my noon bath in the river with all of my disciples, and then we'll come back and we could have our meeting and our lunch. So they did that. Now, in the meantime, it was Dwadashi, which it was the day after Kadashi. Kadashi is Vaishnavas, devotees of Krishna. They fast twice a month for the pleasure of Krishna and engage more in hearing and chanting about Krishna. So Ambarish Maharaj, he did that the previous day. And Dwadashi was there the day after fasting, and it was getting time to break his fast. It was reaching that time where he needed to break his fast. So, but he didn't know what to do, because as culture has it that he's supposed to feed all of them first. He's supposed to feed them first and then later take his lunch. He can't have things first. So he was following that principle. So then he said, well, what do I do? Because the time's coming. There's a window of time where I need to break this fast. So what do I do? He asked some learned people, and they didn't know. So then he realized that what he could do is he could drink water, because it's breaking the fast, but not breaking the fast. It's water. It's not a big deal, right? So that's what he did. He drank some water, and this way he broke his fast. But Durvasa Muni, with his mystic power, he understood that Ambarish Maharaj broke his fast. And he was infuriated. He lost control of his senses, of his anger out of pride. And he became so angry that he attempted to kill Ambarish Maharaj for such a small thing. Jeez, right? It's really angry. Think about that. It's like, you drank some water before you fed me? All right. Now it's time to, it's really... talk about an intense reaction, huh? So then he actually attempted to do that, and with his so we see that this mystic yogi, although he was so powerful, he was powerful through all of his austerities and meditation, and he had mystic power, but he couldn't control his senses. He lost control. Whereas Ambarish Maharaj, we'll see soon, that he didn't lose control at all. He was self-controlled to the topmost degree. So that's the difference. So what happened is Durvasa Muni, he had matted hair, apparently. So he took part of his hair and then he threw it down to the ground, and he created a demoness to kill Ambarish Maharaj. So in other words, he created this ferocious personality and for the purpose of killing this devotee. So you could just imagine, most people would be very scared. So then Ambarish Maharaj, he was standing there, and it's explained that this demoness was coming towards him, and then he just folded his palms, and he just said, okay, and he thought to himself, well, if Krishna wants to kill me, then that's fine. I accept. In other words, he accepted. If that was his fate, then okay, I'll die now. So he wasn't running. He wasn't thinking, oh, why is God doing this to me? I'm a devotee. He wasn't angry at Durvasa Muni at all, which we'll also see later. It's quite amazing. Talk about the topmost platform of forgiveness and compassion. He wasn't at all angry or upset with Durvasa Muni for trying to kill him. So what happened is Lord Viṣṇu, everybody knows Viṣṇu, right? He has 4 arms and also 4 weapons, or not exactly 4 weapons, but 4 things he generally carries, right? What are those? Chakra, Shankha Chakra, Padma, Gada. So conch, how they blow the conch here, conch shell. So Viṣṇu carries that. Also lotus, a club, and chakra. So Srila Prabhupada said that the conch shell and the lotus, it's for blessing the devotees. And the chakra and the club, it's for, taking care of the other ones. So Viṣṇu, he sent a chakra, his chakra, Sudarshan chakra, to kill Durvasa Muni because he's attacking Ambarish Maharaj. So this Sudarshan chakra kills this demoness, and then it goes after Durvasa Muni. And what does Durvasa Muni do? Does he go like this, and what does he do? He runs. He's in fear of his life, and he's just running. And he actually makes quite a lot of distance. He runs all over, trying to, in fear of the Sudarshan chakra, and he actually runs, through his mystic power. He makes it up to the higher planets. He goes to see Brahma, right? Everybody knows Lord Brahma, the engineer of the universe. And Brahma said, I I can't protect you from the Sudarshan Chakra. He goes to Lord Shiva. Everybody knows Lord Shiva, right? Mahadev. And Lord Shiva says, I can't protect you from this chakra. And then he goes all the way up to Lord Viṣṇu, Durvasa Muni. And the Sudarshan Chakra is behind, spinning and effulgent and just ready to annihilate him. And he's there, before Viṣṇu, and the chakra's there behind him, ready to. So then Viṣṇu, he also says a similar thing. I can't stop this. Interesting enough, right? Because you think, oh, Viṣṇu could stop it. So in the 9th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, I'll just read a few verses which coming to this point of Durvasa Muni approaching Lord Viṣṇu. So this is, a couple of verses here, and it really gives a great understanding of the relationship between the devotee of Krishna, means, the devotee of Krishna and Krishna, or the devotee of Viṣṇu and Viṣṇu. It gives a great understanding. And so these are a few verses. So this is Ambarish Maharaj. He's speaking to Viṣṇu. Excuse me, this is Durvasa Muni. He's speaking to Viṣṇu. So he says, O my Lord, O Supreme Controller, without knowledge of your unlimited prowess, I have offended your most dear devotee. Very kindly save me from the reaction of this offense. You can do everything, for even if a person is fit for going to hell, you can deliver him simply by awakening within his heart the holy name of your Lordship. Okay, so it mentions hell here. We won't talk about that much, but the Vaishnava understanding is that there is such a place, but it's temporary, whereas a lot of other conceptions out there is that it's eternal. So there's quite a difference there. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said to the Brahman, Durvasa Muni, I am completely under the control of my devotees. Indeed, I am not at all independent. Because my devotees are completely devoid of material desires, I sit only within the cores of their hearts. What to speak of my devotee? Even those who are devotees of my devotee are very dear to me. O best of the Brahmins, without saintly persons for whom I am the only destination, I do not desire to enjoy my transcendental bliss and my supreme opulences. Since pure devotees give up their homes, wives, children, relatives, riches, and even their lives simply to serve me without any desire for material improvement in this life or the next, how can I give up such devotees at any time? As chaste women bring their gentle husbands under control by service, the pure devotees who are equal to everyone and completely attached to me in the core of the heart, bring me under their full control. My devotees who are always satisfied to be engaged in my loving service are not interested even in the 4 principles of liberation, although these are automatically achieved by their service. What then is to be said of such perishable happiness as elevation to the higher planetary systems? The pure devotee is always within the core of my heart, and I am always in the heart of the pure devotee. My devotees do not know anything else but me, and I do not know anyone else but them. O Brahman, let me now advise you for your own protection. Please hear from me. By offending Maharaj Ambarish, you have acted with self-envy. Therefore you should go to him immediately, without a moment's delay. One's so-called prowess, when employed against the devotee, certainly harms he who employs it. Thus it is the subject, not the object, who is harmed. For a Brahman, austerity and learning are certainly auspicious, but when acquired by a person who is not gentle, such austerity and learning are most dangerous. O best of the Brahmins, you should therefore go immediately to King Ambarish, the son of Maharaj Nabhaga. I wish you all good fortune. If you can satisfy Maharaj Ambarish, then there will be peace for you. So Viṣṇu here, or Kṛṣṇa Viṣṇu, he's saying that the devotees are in my heart. I am the heart of the devotee. I'm in the heart of the devotees. They do not know anyone besides me. I don't know anyone besides them. I am fully under their control. So in other words, it's such a powerful relationship, the relationship between the devotee and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So what happens is Durvasa Muni, he goes to Ambarish Maharaj and he offers obeisances and he asks for forgiveness. And you know what Ambarish Maharaj was doing the whole time, which by the way was a very long time he was waiting? You know what he was doing? He was continuing his fasts, and after Durvasa Muni said, "Please forgive me," Ambarish Maharaj said, I didn't take any offense. And he was waiting there, and he said, "Now let me serve you your lunch." And he served him his lunch, his prasadam. And he didn't hold any grudges. There was no question of anything like that. Such a high devotee. So, yeah, these are some points about Maharaj Ambarish and Durvasa Muni. And does anybody have any questions or comments?
So this must be some kind of pastime of Krishna, that some great Muni, some great personality would act so whimsically and get so angry. Is that what's happening here, or is he just out of his mind for a minute and gets terribly angry?
Well, as far as I remember reading and hearing about this, is that it wasn't considered of course, these things are brought up, you could say extreme examples are brought up to make an impression in our minds and to teach us. But as far as I understand, it wasn't under the direction of it's not that Durvasa Muni was, like Arjuna, for example, in the Bhagavad Gita it explains that Arjuna was an illusion, and therefore Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita, but it's explained that Arjuna is a pure devotee, so Krishna actually put him under that spell, you could say, so the Bhagavad Gita can be spoken for us, who need enlightenment. Speaking for myself, we need enlightenment. So it was an arrangement. Whereas this Durvasa Muni pastime, there's no explanation that it was Durvasa Muni, like Krishna put him in illusion. It was just demonstrating the point that if one is not surrendered to Krishna, if one's not a devotee of Krishna, then one loses control. One loses control of their senses and does foolish things. That's because some people say, "Come on, so what? You lose control of your senses. What's the big deal?" Well, that could really spiral out of control. Actually, the causes of all problems in this world, practically, is due to uncontrolled senses and mind. Why is there a huge prison system? It means that some people, like we may be able to control our minds, right, and our senses to a degree, But letting the mind and senses become out of control, that's why there's prisons. Because people, they say, "Oh, let me rob this bank." It means, we may want money, right? Right? Money sweeter than honey. We may want money, but we may go. We go. Okay, I need to work. I need to, But other people, they want money and they lose control of their mind and their senses. Okay, let me rob the bank. Now that's one example. There's so many examples of losing control of one's senses and that resulting in bad results. So this demonstrates that the need for sense control. That's one thing. There's so many things we could learn from this, but as far as I understand, it's not that Krishna put him under this spell for this particular purpose. He actually lost control. So
there's no backstory, like these two had some previous life experience, and now they're coming back to trade places or...
I mean, one thing that's brought up is that, because you could say, why for such a small offense as drinking water before he had lunch, why would he, try to kill this person? Of course, it went deeper than that. It goes deeper than that. Durvasa Muni was envious of Ambarish Maharaj, because Ambarish Maharaj, he was this saintly, qualified king, and he was getting so much respect and adoration, and everybody loved him, right? Whereas Durvasa Muni, I mean, what does Durvasa mean?
Can't live with them.
Can't live with him. He's a difficult person to deal with. Can't live with him. Difficult, right? So he was naturally not getting the same amount of adoration, respect, love from people, and he was seeing Ambarish Maharaj was, and he was thinking, I'm a great sage, I'm a great mystic. Look at this. He's a person's a king. He's attached to his palace and his kingdom, and he's getting all the respect. So he used this particular, could say, small transgression as an excuse. All right.
He set it up. He came at just that time.
Yeah, he set it up. So that's, thank you. So next time we'll add that in. Guru Krishna Prabhu.
So he came at that exact time with way too many people to feed.
Yeah. I mean, Ambarish Maharaj could have fed them, but he came at the time where it was time to break fast, and then he said, I'm going to go bathe in the river. So then he broke his fast with the water, and then he used that as a...
I may be wrong about this, but I think you're conflating a couple of pastimes. The $60,000 disciple thing took place when Duryodhana asked Durvasa to show up with the Pandavas. He had done something for Durvasa. Durvasa wanted to give him a boon. He said, "I'll wait.
Yeah.
I'll give it." And so when the time came, the Pandavas were in their exile period in the forest, right?
Yeah.
So Draupadi had a boon. I don't know if it was from Durvasa or some other sage, that she could, as long as she didn't eat, she could feed as many people as possible.
Yeah.
So Duryodhana told Durvasa, go to the Pandavas and show up, at lunchtime, but after Draupadi is finished eating. And you go with all your disciples and put them in a terrible situation. They're out there with a few pots and things. How are they going to feed 60,000 disciples? You see?
Yeah.
So they did that, and they said, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? So Krishna shows up. At this time he comes, and he says, give me a little sabji. There's nothing left. We're all finished. He says, no, look in the pot. So he looks in the pot, and there's a little sabji left, as it is. Right? So we have to wash the pots. That means. So he ate that, and when Krishna is satisfied, the whole world is satisfied. So they're taking their bath, ready to take lunch after the bath, but then they're in the water, they completely feel full. They said, we can't eat anything. And so they said they were all embarrassed, and they skulked away without endangering the Pandavas. That's the 60,000.
Yes.
Durvasa came along.
Yes.
That's the etiquette. You can't eat before you're a great guest like this.
Yes, that's true. Yes, that's true. So I rewind and I retract that he didn't come with 60,000 disciples. So everybody could keep that in their minds. Durvasa Muni showed up alone. No 60,000 disciples. But everything else was, I think, accurate. All right, does anybody have any other? Yes.
I'd like to share. This is a great verse, and it's very appropriate to what we all experience in the workplace. I've experienced it many times because I've been in several different corporate workplaces. When someone who's without any sense control, and they're given some small position above subordinates, then the out of control and the anger and this sense of false pride sets in, right?
Yes.
And naturally, I mean, this is already an incompatible situation to start with because no one's a devotee at the corporation. But even within that small microcosm of an example, we see how false pride then basically stops or blocks the flow of work and the flow of energy and goodwill, that the subordinates just want to show up to work and basically make it a good time, right? Produce what they're being asked to do, but not under this boot or under this pressure of someone that's got out of control senses. And I have seen this so many times. So this is a very appropriate verse that we can all remember to be like Maharaj Ambarish and just be silent and wait for that person to step into his own nonsense, because it's going to happen. And step back from it. Don't be enraged or embroiled or in any way engaged in what this person or persons are doing, because then you're safe from the drama and you're safe from any reaction and all these things that are happening around, circling around us. So it's a really great verse because we can take this knowledge and this wisdom and apply it to our workplace and avoid so much nonsense.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's amazing like Srila Prabhupada will quote, said even a pauper, means a poor person, even a pauper is proud of their penny. So even in very small, you could say, insignificant, and you could say universally insignificant positions, one can become proud and very difficult to deal with. Someone was telling me that they were working at a little store where they sell a bunch of junk from China or whatever. I think they call that the dollar store. Anyways, they were working at the dollar store, and I guess there's some valuable things you could buy there. But they're working at the dollar store, and this person was like in charge of, setting up stuff on the shelves. But it was like really, and then this other person was like, moving it, this and that, and the person was on a real like control. You can't touch it, you can't move it. This is mine. It has to be like this. It's like a real, Anyways, all right. Is there another? Yes.
Thank you. I wanted.
Oh yeah, another just a small thing, but interesting detail is that Maharaj Ambarish was worshiping Krishna in Vrindavan, observing the vow of Dwadasi, and so it was all happening in Vrindavan. Those of you who know Vrindavan, and holy place of Krishna. Krishna grew up there and lived there, and so still there. But Durvasa Muni, he was bathing in the Yamuna, so it was all happening in Vrindavan. Yes.
Thank you, Balaram. I wanted to return to a theme you were talking about earlier. At the same time, it links in with the book that you wrote, the Day by Day with Srila Prabhupada, in this idea
you need
of
to hold it closer.
every day should be meditating. In your case, it's stories about Srila Prabhupada. His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu says, read a chapter of Bhagavad Gita a day. Vrajaraj got those not like calendars, but they're like these daily quotes from the Gita, and you can go through them each day. So the section that's in right now is on temptation, and there's a quote there that harkens back to something you were saying, and it draws upon a question where it says, after we've conquered our temptations, then we need to conquer the pride that arises from us conquering our temptations. So I was wondering why pride arises when we do that, because in my minor experience with that, if you're conquering a temptation, you feel like embarrassment about the fact that you were pulled into that. You're not trying to feel prideful about having done that. It feels like you're more grateful to kind of leave it in the dust. So why does pride arise from controlling your senses or conquering your temptations?
It's a great achievement. Actually, it is one of the most, if not the, I not the most, but it's one of the most greatest achievements in the world, because it's not easy to do. I mean, we're talking about like really controlling one's mind and senses, which means you could say not acting from the dictations of anger, in terms of speech, in terms of the demands of, materialistic demands of the mind, so anyways, it's actually a great achievement. So naturally, if anybody achieves anything, there's a tendency to be proud. And also, by the way, we can never control the senses without engaging them in Krishna's service ultimately. But so somebody become proud. Oh, look at my achievement. Look at my medals, whatever. So yeah, that's why. But just because one controls it, they don't have to fall into that. I mean, if one chants Hare Krishna, like one of the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he cures someone. I think it was a leper, and this person's transformed into a handsome young man, and then he asked Lord Chaitanya. He says, "What do I do? Because I think I'm going to become proud." And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he told him, if you chant Hare Krishna, means you should chant Hare Krishna offensively, sincerely, then that pride won't ruin you. In other words, it won't be a problem. So, all right, is there a last?
Just one point. You mentioned there that when Devasa went up to Viṣṇu and asked him to stop the chakra, which seemed like a reasonable request since it's his chakra. And then Viṣṇu says, I can't do it. I'm completely under the control of my devotees. And, so it's just kind of a startling point. Can you explain that? Because Krishna's all powerfully created the universe. How can he say, I'm not independent? I'm under the control of my devotees. How does that work?
Okay. So, out of love, Krishna becomes controlled, just like soon enough, relatively, we'll be reaching the month of the Damodar month, or Kartik. So Kartik is a month celebrated by devotees in which they are focusing every day and every moment of the day on the pastime, trying to focus every moment on the day, on the pastime of Mother Yashoda, Krishna's mother. In Vrindavan, Krishna appeared 5,000 years ago, and he accepted a Mother Yashoda. Anyways. And so at one particular point, Krishna was being a mischievous young, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur calls Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the introduction of the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. He's being a mischievous young lad, right? And he was, actually what happened was Mother Yashoda was feeding him, and then there was milk boiling on the stove. It was a special type of milk from a special cows, a special grass, and then it was overflowing. And then Mother Yashoda stood up, and then she went to tend to the milk. Now, one thing that's brought up is that if Mother Yashoda is a pure devotee, which she is, why would she do something because Krishna became very angry and displeased, why would she do that? But the idea is that her getting up was for the pleasure of Krishna. She wasn't getting up to, check a text or respond to a WhatsApp message or something like that. She was getting up for Krishna. But still, Krishna was upset. It says his eyes became red and he was crying. And, Krishna's the original temper tantrum baby. There's a verse about that from Srila Bilavamangala Thakur, where Krishna throws a temper tantrum. So I'll tell you that. And I'll tell you the English too. Dravida Prabhu's rendition, poetic rendition. So the Sanskrit is Nitam Neva Neva Nitam Kaina Chapitam Payat Kome Manali Iti Samadir Tam Tam Bhuma Balam Namami Gopalam. So the English translation is Krishna, somebody stole his milk, somebody stole his butter, somebody stole his flute, and he's throwing a tantrum. And he's rolling on the ground. So Krishna is saying, and the devotee's praying, who stole my butter, who drank my milk, and where can my flute be found? I bow to the cowherd child who shouts these words as he rolls on the ground. Krishna's throwing a temper tantrum. By Bilavamangala Thakur. So Krishna threw a tantrum, and he was breaking pots of butter and feeding to the monkeys and this and that, and making a mess everywhere. Then Mother Yashoda, she chased after him and she caught him. And she had a stick. Now, she wasn't actually going to use it. It was just for scaring. She had a stick to scare her child, Krishna. But Krishna is very scared. And they said, well, he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. How can he be scared? Well, Krishna has the energy yoga maya, which acts to cover the devotee's understanding that he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so the devotee can relate to Krishna in such a loving way. And it also covers, by Krishna's arrangement, him so he could relate. So there's this energy going on. And he's actually fearful. So she puts down the stick, and then she wants to tie Krishna up around his belly, and tie him to wood and mortar so he doesn't cause any trouble, and so she does that, and she tries to get all the rope in her house, and it's always 2 fingers or 2 inches too short, mystically. So she got all the rope from her house, and it's always too short, just a little bit. She's trying to tie. So then she goes to all the village, the different houses, and they get all their rope, and it's too short, mystically. So then she's perspiring, and her hair and her flowers are falling from her hair, and she's working really hard to tie Krishna. It's just not working. Then eventually Krishna sees that. He's seeing all of this the whole time, but so then he says, "Okay, I'll let her tie me." So it's brought up that these 2 inches, 2 fingers, 2 inches, represents. One is the devotee's endeavor to serve Krishna, and 2 is Krishna's mercy. So in the religious world, it's discussed a lot. What is it? Is it God's mercy that we become, right? We get the mercy of God. Is it only His mercy that we're depending on, or is it our endeavor? Which one is it? Well, it's both. And this is explaining that. So Mother Yashoda's endeavor and Krishna's mercy. And then Krishna was tied up. And there's many other details to it, what happened after that, and it goes on. But this is demonstrating that Krishna agrees to become controlled by his pure devotees because they love him so much. Out of pure affection. So that's why in this particular verse about when Durvasa Muni is speaking to Lord Viṣṇu, then Viṣṇu says this, that I'm under the control of my devotees. So but that pastime demonstrates it very well, I think. All right, so now it is 1 minute after 7, so we'll move on.
Thank you,
very
Balaram
much.
Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Balaram Prabhu, for wonderful talk on Hari Bol. Let's give a big hand of applause to Balaram Prabhu. And thank you to all of you for coming and patiently listening to the talk on